On the 19th of April 2017, two Bloomberg reporters squeezed a Juicero juice pack with their bare hands and killed a company. It took about 90 seconds. Juicero had raised $120 million from investors, including Google's venture arm and Kleiner Perkins, to build a countertop press that squeezed those packs for you, and the reporters had just demonstrated, on video, that your hands did the same job. Within 5 months, the company was gone. Now, the easy version of this story is that Silicon Valley is ridiculous, and a $400 juicer is proof. That version is fun, and it is also useless, because it skips the genuinely strange part. The Juicero press was not junk. It was, by the assessment of the engineers who took one apart, an extraordinarily good machine, one of the most sophisticated consumer products anyone had torn down. This is not a story about people who could not build. It is a story about people who built superbly, and what that does to you when the thing you are building is the wrong thing. So let us talk about the machine, because the machine is remarkable. Juicero sold a press that took a sealed pack of chopped fruit and vegetables and squeezed the juice out of it into your glass. The founder's claim was that the press generated 4 tons of force, enough, he said, to lift 2 Teslas. And to survive that, the thing had to be built like industrial equipment. When the hardware firm Bolt did a full teardown, they put it in roughly the top 5% of consumer products by complexity. The reason is a specific, unglamorous engineering constraint. The door of the machine has to absorb the entire force of the drivetrain pressing against the pack. Every time you close it, that door is holding back the whole system. So the door and the frame around it are enormous pieces of machined aluminium, not cast, not stamped, machined, which is the expensive way. There are custom parts throughout, safety interlocks, a scanner, a control board. Somebody engineered all of that properly. It launched in March of 2016 at $699, and by January of 2017, the price had been cut to $399, which is usually a sign that a product is not moving. There is one more component, and it is the one I want you to sit with, because it is the tell. Every juice pack had a QR code printed on it. The press scanned that code, connected to your Wi-Fi, and checked with Juicero's servers that the pack was genuine and had not expired. If it could not reach the internet or the code did not validate, the machine would not squeeze. Read that again. A juicer that required a network connection to squeeze a bag. Now, there are legitimate-sounding reasons to build that: food safety, freshness, making sure the pack you are drinking is what it claims to be. But look at what it actually is. It is enforcement. It is a mechanism whose entire purpose is to make sure the machine remains necessary and the packs cannot be used without it. That is a substantial amount of engineering and networking and server infrastructure, all spent defending the proposition that the press is what makes the juice. Nobody builds a lock unless they believe there is something inside worth protecting. And then 2 reporters squeezed the bag. That is the whole experiment. There was no leak, no whistleblower, no forensic accounting. Somebody just took the consumable and did the obvious thing by hand and got comparable juice in comparable time. The test took 90 seconds and cost nothing, and it invalidated 4 tons of force, a machined aluminium chassis, a QR scanner, a Wi-Fi stack, a server fleet, and $120 million of investment. And here is the question that should bother anyone who builds things for a living. How does a company full of capable engineers ship a product for over a year without anyone running that test? Not a complicated test, not an expensive one. The single most obvious question about the entire product: what happens if we just squeeze it? If you have ever shipped anything, you already know the answer, and it is not that they were stupid. It is that the question was never anybody's job. If this is the kind of failure you find useful to take apart, subscribe. This channel does one dead company a week, and the cause is almost always structural rather than personal. Here is the reframe. Juicero was not an execution failure. By every available measure, the execution was excellent. The machine works. It is well made. It is overbuilt rather than underbuilt. The failure sits one level above execution in the requirement. Somewhere early on, the requirement was written down as Apply enough force to this pack to extract the juice. And from that moment, everything downstream was correct. 4 tons is a reasonable answer to that requirement. Machined aluminium is a reasonable answer to 4 tons. A validating scanner is a reasonable answer to a proprietary consumable. Every single engineering decision follows properly from the one before it. The defect is that the first line was never checked against the world, and no amount of excellence further down the chain can detect an error that sits above the top of it. And this produces a genuinely uncomfortable conclusion, which is the thing I actually want you to take away. When the requirement is wrong, engineering quality converts money into waste at exactly the rate of the quality. A worse team would have built a flimsier press, spent less, and failed smaller. Being good at building is a multiplier, and a multiplier does not care about the sign of the number you point it at. Juicero announced it was shutting down on the 1st of September 2017 and suspended sales of the presses and the packs immediately, about 16 months after the machine went on sale, and a little over 4 months after the Bloomberg video. The company offered refunds to people who wanted them. And the part that lingers is not the money, because $120 million is a rounding error in venture capital, and everybody involved has moved on. It is the machined aluminium. Somewhere there was an engineer who solved the door problem, who worked out how to transmit 4 tons through a hinge that a person could still close with one hand, and solved it well, and was probably proud of it. That work was real. It was good. It was simply attached to a premise that 90 seconds of testing would have destroyed, and nobody spent the 90 seconds because the premise was upstream of everyone's job description. If you want the modern version of this exact failure, a beautifully engineered piece of hardware, genuinely impressive to hold, built to a standard most companies never reach, and solving a problem that turned out not to be there. The Humane AI pin is the same story with better materials and a worse thermal budget. That one had a physics problem on top of the requirements problem, which is a combination almost nothing survives. It is on the channel now, and the link is on screen.